my buddy Tony Stewart, as you know, got in a violent sprint car crash last night over in Iowa at the beginning of the big week over there, which determines the National Sprint Car Championship. And Tony broke his leg. We just heard from an eyewitness who was there that he was leading the race, coming out of the corner. All of a sudden, the guy stopped dead in front of him, I guess. I may be wrong about that, but Tony's hit his front wheel, and it jammed up into the car, and the car started flipping. And Tony's got a broken leg now. I don't know which bones. What difference does it make? As long as it's not the femur. That's that big bone in your leg. I don't think it was his femur. That's the tough one to break. Takes a little while to get over with. Right now they say Tony's out for the Watkins Glen race this weekend. That's very, you have to use your leg quite a bit in that because you got to shift gears even though you don't push the clutch down much. And he's, and I don't know if he's out of the hospital yet. We haven't heard. We don't know how long it's going to take to come back. But I can tell you this about leg injuries. When you break a couple bones in your leg, it's not overnight. But knowing Tony, as tough as he is, who knows when he'll be back. He's done this before, not in a sprint car. I remember he broke it. Maybe it wasn't a sprint car. Maybe it was in an Indy car, but he broke his foot a couple places and leg, and he had to spend, as A.J. Foyt says, time between the sheets. And that's what makes a race driver think a lot about what he's doing. Tony won't think too much about that because he likes racing too much, and he'll come back strong. Now, big controversy, of course, now stirring up and around is should a driver like Tony compete in sprint car racing? Well, number one, a lot of people don't know what a sprint car is, so let me just give you a primer on it, just simple. They call it the Sprint Cup Series, but it's not a sprint car, it's a stock car. You know, it's 3,500 pounds, it's got a full roll cage around it, yakety yakety yak. A sprint car, on the other hand, is a streamlined, super fast version of that. It doesn't have a full body on it. It's got open wheels, so you're out there vulnerable, particularly to flips. I think they made those cars to flip. I know one thing, they sell a lot of tickets because they're awful exciting. They have tremendous torque, meaning coming off the corner, when you hit that throttle, you got your hands full. And all kind of exciting things can happen. Particularly if you go out there and you pump somebody or you hit somebody. Now this year we've lost at least 2 drivers killed in sprint car racing. Jason Leffler, NASCAR driver, being one of them. Friend of mine, nice guy, hated to see that. And we lost another driver in the past week. So sprint car racing is not for the faint of heart, I'll tell you that. A lot of your cup drivers would not think about getting in a sprint car. On the other side, there's a number of really good sprint car drivers in NASCAR, Casey Kane being one of them, our winner at Pocono. Casey has a couple sprint cars himself. Kenny Schrader was a great sprint car driver. Dave Blaney was a great sprint car driver, and you can go on and on and on. There's a lot of guys that did well in sprint cars, and of course that's what Tony did before he got into Indy racing, before he came down and started wrestling these big bear stock cars. So we wish Tony well. All these people are saying he shouldn't have been doing it, yakety yakety yak. It was like Cabrera, the great baseball player leading hitting in the American League, going out and boxing. That's silly. I heard that statement on the radio today. If Tony wants to do that, he loves doing it. That's his side piece. Let him do it. You say, well, the car owner should have kept him from doing it. Tony's the car owner. So what do you say about that? You know, he can do what he wants to do. Now, and with some guys, Casey Kane, he drives for Rick Hendrick. He races sprint cars on the side. Casey was in a wreck earlier this year. He flipped the car 3 or 4 times, or maybe more, somewhere, sprint car. And he hasn't been running one since. Now, whether that was self-leveling, or whether Rick said, hey, Casey, Rick probably didn't say that. Because Rick's not, he just lets his guys pretty much do what they want to do. Now, Jimmy Johnson, an off-road racer, you think sprint cars wild, off-road racers wild. I mean, you go out through the desert, you know, closed hospital may be 80 miles away. You're jumping some deal, you're going way up in the air, and the car's smoking and dust is flying everywhere, and some guy runs underneath you. Where'd that guy come from? Pew! You know, you could have landed on top of him, or he could have landed on top of you, you know. Jimmy Johnson doesn't do that much anymore, if any. And he was one of the best there was. So a lot of these guys kind of tempered themselves and say, okay, I don't do that much anymore. Dale Earnhardt Jr. used to run a lot of nationwide races. He doesn't run a lot of those anymore either. So guys kind of temper what they do with how they do it, but Tony never has. A.J. Foyt, Tony was A.J. Foyt's protege. A.J. Foyt would run Le Mans 1 week and come back out of that French winning the 24 hours of Le Mans, come back and go to Selins Grove or some crazy track up in Pennsylvania or Ohio and run that sprint car. Go out through the woods, you know. That's what he liked to do. So they're racers, folks. That's what people do. Racer stands for one who races. Whether it's smart or not, leave it up to them. Racers are different than football players and basketball players and boxers and stuff like that. They're cut out of a different mold. You can't tell them what to do. Although some of the contracts now with the big companies prohibit them from doing certain things other than racing sprint cup cars or like that. You can't jump out of a parachute. Most guys can't. I mean, you don't want to jump out of a parachute. I mean, you don't want to jump out of an airplane with a parachute on. You don't jump out of a parachute. That's prohibited with a lot of things. Insurance company, you got policy with insurance company. They may say, okay, you can do this, this, or this, but you can't do this. You can't go down a submarine. You can't be an astronaut. You can't do this. You can't do that. So some of that is prohibited with insurance, and that fight takes a lot of it. But Tony doesn't have that guy insurance, I'm sure. So he does what he wants to do.